My reason for creating this YouTube channel is that I have a daughter, and I have a daughter that I will never get to see again. So you can imagine I'm creating these videos with the hope that one day my daughter will have the opportunity to see them. One day this will create an opportunity for her to know what I sounded like, what I looked like, what motivated me in life, what the reasons were for how I lived my life up to this point. And of course, I'm hoping that YouTube is still going to be in business 20 years from now. If the website disappears, then my efforts to leave some kind of a bridge between the generations will disappear with it. In all these photographs, you'll notice that I look exhausted. And I am exhausted. Taking care of a newborn baby is basically impossible for two people to do in isolation. I don't particularly subscribe to the old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. But there's a huge difference between two parents working alone and two parents having help from a third person, a fourth person, whether that's a grandparent, an aunt or uncle or otherwise. The more people you have, the more you can distribute the hours of sleep between the adults. But we had just two people working very much alone. In presenting these photographs, I could be telling stories about the circumstances surrounding the birth, what we went through before and after. I could talk about how awful the staff were at the hospital. I could talk about how awful the struggle was to get furniture and electricity into the apartment before the baby arrived. However, most of those stories, they're neither concise nor witty. They'd probably take several hours to tell, and I think they might not even be interesting to my own daughter one day. It was tough. In a word, the whole process was tough, and nobody made it easy for us. People in the medical system lied to us at every stage. People lost their tempers all around us for no good reason at all. I had to stop, physically stop, a nurse from attacking my wife at least once or twice. Everyone who was supposed to be a healthy, sane professional acted like they were the ones who needed help. They were openly bullying someone who was in physical pain to no good purpose, and they created conflict and misery on what should have been or could have been a happy occasion. But instead, all the time that we were in contact with medical professionals was just a bleak struggle. And I was told many times that if I didn't like it, I could go back to the healthcare system in my country. And the people telling me this, they all imagined that I came from some third world country that lacked electricity, that lacked modern hospitals, no matter how many times I told them that I was from Canada. I had sacrificed everything in my life to relocate from Asia to Canada, to start a new life, supporting my wife in the new job that she had accepted there. And then, just as suddenly, I had to sacrifice everything I was doing in Canada to start a new life in France, support my wife's decision to quit her job, and to have a baby at the same time. France didn't last. The marriage didn't last either. I was able to spend only 10 months with my daughter before my wife's sudden disappearance, taking both the baby and, predictably, taking all of our money with her. She was on an airplane just 4 days after the decision to divorce. However, during those first 10 months of my daughter's life, all of my time was devoted to taking care of the baby, either directly or indirectly. When you have just two people working in isolation, you have to carefully coordinate everything you're doing, from grocery shopping to napping, so that someone is tending to the babies at all times. And during that process, I was also doing a lot of heavy lifting, as we moved again and again from one home to the next, bought new furniture, assembled the furniture, and then ended up throwing it away. The struggle was to create an island of stability for a newborn baby in a context where our own lives, in fact, were completely lacking any stability. What was going to happen with my own future even within a few months' time of the baby's birth, was very much an open question. So, now, I'll never see my daughter again, and I'm left to start a new life of my own. I know that you may be wondering, with some idiom or another, how is this possible? If two educated people get together, if you get married to a woman with a PhD, how does it end this way? How do you end up as a guest on the Jerry Springer show? Intellectuals are passionate people too. Most intellectuals I've known are motivated by their passions more than their thoughts, maybe just because they've long since gotten bored of their thoughts in their teenage years. When we first met, my wife fell in love with me pretty much instantly. She made the decision that she wanted to marry me about 3 weeks into the relationship. Less than 6 years later, she was just as decisive in leaving me. And whatever mix of motivations she may have had, that isn't my story to tell. On this YouTube channel, I'm just telling my own story about my own past, present, and future. And hopefully, as I say, one day my daughter will be able to see this and hear this and make better decisions for her own life. In the 21st century, ultimately, it is entirely my wife's decision. And of course, as terrible as it is for me, I sympathize that she's made a very tough decision and chosen a very hard path in choosing to be a single mother. And I'm left to say that in some sense, I support her decision, even if it has a devastating effect on my own life. Just as I supported her other decisions before, relocating to Canada, relocating to France, relocating to Asia, supported those decisions also, even if they had a devastating effect on my own life.